My younger sister flirted with my boyfriend and attacked me. I blocked her for 6 years. But when she showed up crying at my door 3 days before my wedding, our toxic parents were destroyed by our decision. I'm 28 years old. My name is Abigail. I work in digital marketing. And after 6 years of not speaking to my younger sister, she ended up coming to my wedding, and my parents didn't. And honestly, I'm still processing how the hell we got to this point. I guess I should start from the beginning, because this story didn't start 6 years ago when I stopped talking to Tiffany. It started way before that, when we were kids and my parents, Cynthia and George, decided that raising two daughters was basically like training gladiators for the Roman Colosseum. For as long as I can remember, everything in my house was a competition. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Who got better grades, who was prettier, who had more friends, who was better at sports, even who ate faster or showered faster. My mom would literally sit us down at the table and say things like, Abigail got a 95 inches math, but Tiffany got a 98. And then she'd look at me with that disappointed face that still gives me nightmares. My dad did the same thing, but with other stuff. Like, Tiffany ran faster today in P. What happened to you, Abigail? And we, like good girls who wanted our parents' approval, completely bought into it. We became enemies instead of sisters. You know what I mean? We grew up hating each other, basically. I was 2 years older than Tiffany, so when she was like 8 years old, I was 10, and we were already in total war mode. She would hide my homework. I would ruin her drawings. She would tell Mom that I had broken something she broke. I would tell Dad that she had lied about her grades. It was exhausting, honestly, but it was normal for us. Our parents would laugh when we fought or punish both of us equally, no matter who started it, which obviously only made us hate each other more because we always felt like the other one was to blame for us getting punished. When I got to college, things calmed down a bit because we didn't live together anymore, but the tension was still there. Every time I went home, Tiffany was still in high school, and my parents kept doing the same thing, comparing us in everything. I was studying marketing. She wanted to study graphic design, and my parents constantly said things like, well, at least Abigail chose something more stable. Or, Tiffany is more creative than you, Abigail. You're just good with numbers. We could never just be, you know? There always had to be a better one and a worse one. So, anyway, fast forward like 6.5 years ago, when I was 21 and Tiffany was 19. I had just met Kevin, my now husband, and we'd been dating for about 3 months. It was the first serious relationship I had, and I was super excited, so I decided to bring him to dinner with my family. A huge mistake. But well, at that moment, I thought it would be nice for him to meet everyone. Kevin was, and is amazing. He's 29 now. He worked in software development back then. Super polite, nice, handsome. I mean, the whole package. Dinner started. Relatively normal, my parents asked the typical questions about his work, his family, his intentions with me. Yes, my dad literally asked that. Super awkward. But then Tiffany started with her show. At first, it was subtle things, like touching her hair when Kevin spoke, laughing too loud at his jokes, leaning toward him when she passed him the salt. I was sitting there thinking, she can't be that obvious. But yes, she could. Things escalated when she started asking him super personal questions about his past relationships, his taste in women, if he liked younger girls. She was 19, remember? And Kevin looked super uncomfortable but was trying to be polite because he had just met my family. I held it together as best I could during dinner, but when we finished eating and were in the living room, Tiffany sat next to Kevin on the couch, like super close to him, and put her hand on his arm while telling him some stupid story about college. That was it. I exploded. I said, Tiffany can. You stop acting like you're desperate for 5 minutes. And she turned to me with that fake smile she always used and said, oh, Abigail, jealous? It's not my fault if your boyfriend finds me interesting. I got up from the couch and told her, you know what? You've always been like this. Always trying to take everything I have because you're a loser who can't get anything on your own. Yes, I admit it. It was cruel. But I was furious and had like 20 years of accumulated frustration. My parents just sat there, didn't say anything to defend me or calm the situation down. They just watched us like we were an entertaining reality show. Tiffany jumped up, her face turned red, and before I could react, she grabbed my hair and pulled me backward. I fell, sitting on the couch, and she took the opportunity to slap me so hard it literally left my ear ringing. Kevin stood up immediately and pulled her away from me, yelling at her what the hell was wrong with her. And my parents finally reacted, but only to say that we were both acting like children and that we should calm down, as if I had done anything other than defend myself from her flirting with my boyfriend. Kevin helped me up, we grabbed our stuff, and we left. In the car, he asked me if I was okay, and I just cried the whole way home. I had a chunk of hair missing because Tiffany had ripped it out, my face red and swollen from the slap, and a humiliation I can't even describe. When we got to my apartment, I told Kevin I was so sorry, that my family was a mess, that if he wanted to break up with me, I would completely understand. He hugged me and told me it wasn't my fault, that my sister clearly had problems, and that he wasn't going anywhere. That night, I decided I didn't want Tiffany in my life anymore. I blocked her number, blocked her from all social media, and told my parents I didn't want to know anything about her. They told me I was exaggerating, that she was my sister, that families fight but forgive each other. I told them that she had physically attacked me, that she had flirted with my boyfriend in front of everyone, and that if they didn't see how toxic that relationship was, then I also needed distance from them. I didn't completely block them like I did Tiffany, but I reduced contact to a minimum, like calls every 2 months and visits at Christmas or birthdays, always making sure Tiffany wasn't present. The next 6 years were relatively calm. Kevin and I moved in together after a year. I got an amazing job at a marketing agency. He got promoted at his company, and in general, we were happy. My parents occasionally mentioned Tiffany, trying to get me to talk to her or forgive her, but I always refused. According to what they told me, Tiffany had graduated with her graphic design degree, was looking for work, still lived with them, had no boyfriend, basically her life wasn't going very well. Part of me felt sorry, but the other part thought that maybe if she hadn't been so horrible to me, things would be different for her. Last year, Kevin proposed to me. It was perfect. Romantic. On the beach at sunset. Yes. Super cliché. But I loved it. And obviously, I said yes. We started planning the wedding immediately because we both wanted something relatively soon, so we set the date for about a year after the proposal. I invited my parents. They said they would go but wanted me to invite Tiffany too. I told them no, that after 6 years of not speaking, I wasn't going to have her at one of the most important days of my life. We argued a bit, but eventually they said they respected it, although I knew it wasn't true. My sister-in-law and my best friend organized my bridal shower, like 2 months before the wedding. It was at a really nice event hall. They invited about 40 people, including friends, cousins, aunts, co-workers, and obviously my mom. Everything was going amazing. There were games, delicious food, beautiful gifts, and I was literally on cloud 9, until I heard my dad's voice at the entrance. I turned around, and there they were. My dad, George, my mom, Cynthia, and Tiffany. All three standing at the entrance of the hall like nothing, smiling like this was completely normal. I felt my stomach drop to the floor. My best friend immediately came up to me and whispered, "I didn't invite them, I swear." And I told her I knew, that obviously it had been my parents. I walked toward them, trying to stay calm because there were like 40 people watching, and I said quietly, "What are you doing here?" My mom said, "Surprise, honey. We brought Tiffany so you two can reconcile. She's your sister and should be at your special day." I was shaking with anger but tried to control myself and told them, "I need you to leave. All 3 of you. Now." Tiffany took a step forward and said, "Abigail, please. I just want to talk to you. It's been 6 years." And I responded, "I don't care how much time has passed. You didn't want to talk to me after attacking me. You never apologized. And now you show up at my bridal shower without an invitation. Leave." My parents started saying I was being dramatic, that this was ridiculous, that Tiffany had matured and I should give her a chance. The people in the hall were already paying full attention to the scene, everyone quiet watching what was going to happen, and something in me broke. I was fed up with my parents minimizing what Tiffany had done to me, fed up with them expecting me to always be the one who gave in, fed up with being the reasonable sister while Tiffany did whatever she wanted without consequences. So I turned to all the guests and said out loud, "Since you're here, let me tell you why I haven't spoken to my sister for 6 years. 6 years ago, I brought her to meet my boyfriend, now my fiancé, and she spent the entire dinner blatantly flirting with him in front of me and my parents. When I confronted her, she physically attacked me, pulled my hair, ripped out chunks, and slapped me so hard it left my face swollen. My parents did nothing to defend me. They just said we were both wrong. She never apologized, never acknowledged that what she did was horrible, and now she shows up here 6 years later like nothing happened, brought by my parents without my permission, at my event. The silence in that hall was deafening. Everyone stared at me with shocked faces, some with their mouths open. My parents were red with shame and fury. Tiffany was pale, looking at the floor. Then my Aunt Evelyn, my mom's sister, got up from her table and walked toward us. Evelyn is like the matriarch of the family. Everyone respects her because she's successful, owns her own design company, and doesn't take crap from anyone. Evelyn looked at Tiffany and said, "Is that true?" Tiffany nodded without looking up. Evelyn continued, "2 weeks ago, your mom asked me to give you a job at my company. She told me you were a recently graduated graphic designer and that you needed an opportunity. I accepted because you're my niece and I wanted to help you. But now that I know you violently attacked your sister and never apologized, that job offer is canceled. I don't want violent people without emotional responsibility working at my company." Then she turned to my parents and told them, "You should be ashamed of how you raised your daughters, how you put them in competition their whole lives, and how you now expect Abigail to forgive something so serious without Tiffany even having the decency to apologize first." My parents tried to defend themselves, but Evelyn shut them down, saying they should leave, that they weren't welcome. Other aunts and cousins started murmuring in agreement, some literally pointing to the door. Tiffany started crying and ran out of the hall. My parents followed her, but not before turning to look at me with pure hatred. The door closed behind them, and there was like 10 seconds of silence before my best friend shouted, "Well, let's toast to Abigail and to having the courage to set boundaries." And everyone started clapping and cheering for me. The rest of the bridal shower was weird but good. Everyone came to hug me and tell me I had done the right thing by standing up for myself, that my sister sounded horrible, that my parents were toxic. Some shared their own stories of complicated family members. It was like group therapy but with mimosas and bridal shower games. I felt supported but also emotionally exhausted. You know? Like it had been liberating to say everything but also super intense. 2 days later, my mom called me. Well, she tried to call me like 20 times until I finally answered. She was furious. She yelled at me that because of me, Tiffany had lost the job with Evelyn, that now the whole family thought she and my dad were bad parents, that I was selfish and resentful. How dare I humiliate my sister publicly? I told her that Tiffany humiliated herself by showing up uninvited after 6 years without apologizing, and that if she and my dad, I hadn't defended me 6 years ago, I didn't expect them to start now. She told me I was a horrible daughter and hung up. I blocked my parents from everything. Phone, social media, email, WhatsApp, everything. Kevin supported me completely, told me I had done the right thing, and that I didn't deserve that kind of treatment from my own family. Weeks passed and I tried to focus on the final wedding preparations, but I'm not going to lie. I was sad. Sad because despite everything, they were my parents and part of me wanted them at my wedding. Sad because my relationship with Tiffany was never going to be what it could have been if my parents hadn't raised us as enemies. About a month before the wedding, I was at my apartment working from home when the doorbell rang. It was noon on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and almost had a heart attack. It was my parents and Tiffany. I thought about not opening, but they kept ringing and ringing, so I finally opened the door, but not the security chain, and told them, "What do you want? You're not invited here." Tiffany stepped forward. She looked terrible, with dark circles, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She said, "Abigail, please, I need to talk to you." I told her there was nothing to talk about. She started crying and said, "You're right about everything, about absolutely everything. I was horrible to you. I was always horrible to you." And not just that day with Kevin, but during our entire childhood and adolescence. I was so caught up in the competition our parents created that I lost sight of the fact that you were my sister, not my enemy. Flirting with Kevin was unforgivable. Attacking you physically was unforgivable. And not apologizing for 6 years was unforgivable. I have no excuse. I can't blame our parents for my decisions. I chose to do those horrible things, and I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to invite me to your wedding. I just needed you to know that I'm deeply sorry and that I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I was so toxic to you. I stood there, processing. My parents were behind her in silence, which was weird because they always had something to say. I asked her, Why now? Why not 6 years ago? Or 5 years ago? Or 4 years ago? She said, because I was a coward. Because I was ashamed. Because every year that passed, it became harder to face you. But when I lost the job with Aunt Evelyn and she told me exactly why I lost it, something clicked. I realized that my actions have real consequences, that I can't keep being the victim of my own story, that I needed to take responsibility. I've tried to contact you 1,000 ways, but you have me blocked from everything. So I begged Mom and Dad to bring me here even though they told me you'd probably slam the door in my face, which I would completely deserve. I looked at my parents and asked them, "And what do you have to say?" My dad, George, cleared his throat and said, "We also owe you an apology. We created a toxic dynamic between you two and didn't see it until it was too late." My mom, Cynthia, added, "We shouldn't have brought Tiffany to your bridal shower. That was crossing a line. And we shouldn't have blamed you for the consequences of something she caused herself. It was our last desperate attempt to fix something we should have fixed years ago the right way." I don't know what happened to me at that moment. Honestly. Maybe it was the years of therapy I had also been doing. Maybe it was seeing Tiffany genuinely devastated. Maybe it was that Kevin had spent months telling me that resentment was only hurting myself. I removed the security chain from the door and opened it completely. Tiffany looked at me with hope and I said, "Come in, let's talk." We sat in the living room. I offered them coffee. How polite of me being the life of the party in the middle of family drama. Tiffany and I talked for hours. She told me about her therapy, about how she had been working on her anger, her need for approval, her sick competitiveness. She told me she had been working temp jobs since graduation because her reputation in the design industry was ruined by her attitude. That she had lost friends, relationships, opportunities, everything, because of her inability to control her emotions and her need to always win. I told her about my therapy, about how I had worked to let go of anger toward her and toward our parents, about how I had built a happy life with Kevin despite the family trauma. My parents also talked, admitted that they had used us as entertainment, that they enjoyed the competition between us because it made them feel like we were successful or something super sick like that. They said they had also gone to therapy after the bridal shower incident because several family members confronted them about their role in our broken relationship. At the end of the conversation, Tiffany asked me if there was any possibility that we could start over. Not as the sisters we were, but as the sisters we could be. I told her I would think about it, that I couldn't just erase 6 years of pain with a 3-hour conversation, but that I appreciated her honesty and her apology. Then, I don't know why. Maybe because Kevin had been saying I would regret not having my sister at my wedding. I said, "You know what? Come to the wedding, but it's your last chance. If you do anything that ruins my day, you'll never hear from me again. Understood?" She nodded, crying, and hugged me. It was awkward, but it also felt good in some weird way. I told my parents they could also go to the wedding, but that I needed distance after that I needed time to decide if I wanted to rebuild a relationship with them or not. They accepted, although they looked sad. They left about half an hour later, and I sat in my living room feeling like I had run an emotional marathon. I told Kevin everything when he got home from work, expecting him to tell me I was crazy for inviting Tiffany to the wedding. Instead, he said, "I'm proud of you. I know how hard that must have been, and I'll be by your side no matter what happens." God, I love that man. A week later, I received an email from my parents. I opened it, expecting I don't know what, maybe confirmation that they would go to the wedding, maybe more apologies. Instead, it was a long letter saying they had decided not to go to the wedding because they felt they didn't deserve to be there after all the damage they had caused, that Tiffany should go alone, that they needed more time to work on themselves, and that they hoped someday we could be a real family. They also said something super weird about how Tiffany and I were stronger without them, and that maybe that's how it should be for now. Basically, they were blaming us again subtly while pretending to be martyrs. You know what I mean? Typical of them. I forwarded the email to Tiffany asking if she knew anything. She called me crying, saying she didn't know anything, that our parents hadn't told her they weren't going to go, that she thought all 3 of them were going together. We talked for a while, and we both came to the same conclusion. Our parents were never really going to change. The therapy was just to look good. And it was better this way. It was weird, but also liberating in a way. The wedding was 3 months ago. It was beautiful, perfect, everything I had dreamed of. Tiffany came. She was amazing. Helped my maid of honor with last-minute preparations, stayed away from drama, didn't drink too much, and told me several times during the night how happy she was to be there. Kevin introduced her to one of his designer friends, and they connected professionally. Turns out this guy has his own startup and is looking for designers. I don't know if anything will come of that. But it was nice that Kevin made the effort, considering their history. My parents didn't go, obviously. Some aunts asked me about them, and I just said they had decided not to come, without giving more details. No one pressed. Aunt Evelyn hugged me at the reception and told me she was proud of me for setting boundaries and for giving Tiffany a second chance when she really deserved it. That meant so much to me. Now, Tiffany and I talk like twice a week. Nothing intense, just casual messages or occasional coffees. We're rebuilding a relationship from scratch, like two adults who are learning to know each other without our parents' toxicity in the middle. It's not easy. Sometimes I feel resentment when she says or does something that reminds me of the past. But I remind myself that she's working on changing, and that I also need to work on letting go of the past. With my parents, I haven't talked since that email. I still have them blocked. Part of me thinks that someday maybe I can forgive them, but another part is completely at peace with never having them in my life again. Kevin says, it's my decision, and that he supports me no matter what I choose. Tiffany says she hasn't talked much with them either, that they're super resentful of both of us for uniting against them, as if this were a conspiracy and not consequences of their own actions. Last week, Tiffany asked me if I wanted to go with her to a sister therapy session, like family therapy but just the two of us. I said yes. We're going next week, and honestly, I'm nervous but also hopeful. You know? Like, for the first time in my life, I feel like we could have a real sister relationship. Not the sick relationship our parents created, but something genuine and healthy. I don't know if we'll make it, but I want to try. And that's already more than I would have imagined a year ago, when I still had her blocked from everything and thought I never wanted to see her again. I guess the lesson here, if there is one, is that family is complicated and that sometimes distancing yourself from certain people is the only way to heal, but also that people can change if they really want to and do the work. Tiffany did the work. My parents didn't. And now Kevin and I are happy. Tiffany is working on herself, and my parents are God knows where doing God knows what. It's weird how everything ended up, but it's my new reality. And honestly, it could be much worse.